What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another bag of recruiting chips. As always, I am Jeremy the Couch Potato. Opposite side of the screen, we got Coach Slate. We are here, brought to you by the Barn Baseball and Softball Academy and Cornerstone Home Remodeling. Here to talk some class of 25 stuff and go from there. What's going on?
Oh, not much, man. It's kind of tough when we record late to find a place to record in the house. So today I'm in my makeshift studios in the kitchen. Um, so just try to keep it down so the baby so the baby doesn't wake up, man. But we're good. Had a tooth pulled the other day, that's why we couldn't record yesterday. So we're back. We're back on the mend. But life's good, man. How you doing?
We are hanging in there. We are T-minus 2 days away from my knucklehead son coming home for Christmas break.
There we go.
He will probably listen to this on his drive home, which I have found out that he does. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, he looks like he is currently getting some McDonald's as we record. Um,
Okay.
it's, uh,
All right.
he
Well, Jaden, I got a challenge for you since you're listening. You'll be listening on your drive home. I got a 5-year-old that has shown interest in bowling. I need some one-on-one lessons so that she can become an absolute dog. And so I know you're the guy to come to. So I'll pay you whatever we need. She's tough to work with, but I need her. I need her ready to go. All right, man.
That is too funny. Yeah, they bowl Saturday, and then I think he's coming home after that. So get that semester break in. He will academically be a junior when he goes back.
It's crazy.
That's wild. Yeah, I actually talked to our good friend Evan Kirk at Dostal and Kirk, or Evan Geyer from Dostal and
Yeah.
Kirk. We're gonna do some introductions and see what we can find him internship wise for the summer.
There
So
we go.
yeah, so shout out Evan, Marinaire. Speaking of Marinaires, before we dive into recruiting, we would be remiss if we did not give a shout out to a couple of guys we both know, Bryson Fags and LJ Scott, both
Yep.
getting inducted into the HHS Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Uh, shout out to those guys. LJ, you can still find a Sports Center top 10 with LJ.
Oh, no
Uh,
doubt. No doubt.
so I wish things would have been different at Louisville because he got railroaded at Louisville, man. Got to
Oh,
play with
yeah.
Lamar though. Got to play with
Yeah.
Lamar. So uh,
Yeah. And Bryson Fags had a rumor has it he had a pretty stud of a fullback that blocked for him in his best year in high school, his sophomore year. So I don't know if that had anything to do with him being in the Hall of Fame, but I'm happy for those guys, man. They're absolute legends in the backfield, just great dudes. Bryson tore it up on the track as well.
yeah,
Just did some phenomenal things, man, with the shot put and with the disc. So well deserved. I'm excited for him, and I can't wait for the day when they induct my beautiful wife, Erin Slater, into the Hall of Fame. Her time is coming. I
oh
know she
yeah,
was a finalist, so hopefully one of these years she's one of the people that we get to celebrate, man. But shout out to Bryson and LJ.
yeah. I mean, there are people who say that I will be going to the Hall of Fame induction in 8 years. So I mean,
No doubt.
we will see. So yeah, it's actually a good thing that we didn't record until tonight because our last signing didn't happen until today.
Yeah.
Um, so the Buckeyes, I'm going to chalk it up overall, given the smoke that was out there. I'm going to give this an A day. I mean, it was an
Oh
A.
yeah.
The last few years, the Buckeyes have been victimized by the last second flip.
Mm-hmm.
Be it Justin Scott, Marquise. Well, Lightfoot was never committed. Um, Mark Fletcher, Jordan Lyle. I mean, you name it, it's been there.
Yeah.
Um, this year we only lost one, and we've talked about it. If you follow recruiting at all, you knew Naeem Offord was leaving. Now where he went, little bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
But I'm actually kind of glad he went there because some of the things that have came out since then are really eye opening. You hear us talk
Mm-hmm.
about bags getting dropped or this or that, and it's not just being bitter. Phil Knight literally just sold this kid not just a bucket of snake oil. Phil Knight just sold this kid the whole refinery of snake oil.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And one of the things I've seen on social media is, people upset, how do we lose a kid like this? Listen, you don't compete with Nike. Like it's hard to do when you have Phil Knight, when you have the entire Nike organization in your backyard funneling whatever amount of money that you need to get these guys. Like there's nothing that you can do to compete with that. And so I love the fact that the Buckeyes, stood strong and hey, this is what we'll give you. We may give you a little bit more, but this is what we got. And when you have Phil Knight promising you, the idea of having your own shoe, like you can't, you just can't compete with that. And so if you don't want to be in this class because of that, you don't want to be in this class. Listen, our corner back room, and we'll get into this later probably, but our cornerback room is very solid. And
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing that frustrates me about Buckeye Nation sometimes, that we often forget what we already brought in.
Yep.
Aaron Scott's going to be a dog. We have Jermaine Matthews coming back. We have Bryce West coming back. We have Calvin Sensom-Hutt coming back. Like we have Miles Lockhart coming back. We could have IGB coming back. Oh, and we have the number one corner in the country in this class. And we also have a 6'4" freak in Jordan Woods that's going to be in this class as well. And so it's like, I get it. It sucks. Naeem Alford, he was arguably my favorite player in this class because I think he's that special of a player. But, we lose him. It sucks, but it's okay. We can't compete with some of those things. And I'm glad the Buckeyes didn't try to throw even more money at him, because I think in the transfer portal, they're going to allocate those funds to go somewhere else. It's going to be extremely important, like the offensive line.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to jump in and, just kind of give, we've talked about all these guys since we've been doing this pod, but, just kind of a rehash. We're not going to bore you with all of the stats and everything like that, but you hit on one of the two leaders of this class. Devin Sanchez and his family truly are what it means to be Buckeyes. Devin Sanchez's dad literally responded to every single Ohio State football Twitter account, the official Twitter account, when it would post the video, when each guy's letter was in, with a compliment, a nickname or something of that sort to each guy.
Yeah. Yeah. The Sanchez family is phenomenal. I mean, and when you're recruiting certain people, you can just tell they stand out above the rest. And the way that the Sanchez family has represented not only themselves, but Buckeye Nation throughout this whole process has just been awesome. You see them commenting on different podcasts, on the beat. You see them, obviously on social media, like you were just talking with their dad. And Devin has been such a leader in this class. Listen, you're talking about the number one corner in the country. He was welcoming any other corner to come join this class. He wasn't running away from competition. He was not doing that because, he knows what it means to be a part of something special. And so he's coming from a great program at North Shore in Houston, Texas. And I think Devin Sanchez has an opportunity, especially if IGB doesn't come back. He's got an opportunity to be a starter as a freshman.
Yep.
I think he's that talented. Now, it's not going to be easy. I think Aaron Scott's going to really take a massive jump next year. But I mean, he's really got a chance to really go in and compete and be in the top three, especially, the top three when he comes in on campus. So, Devin Sanchez is a kid who's number one cornerback in the country, number 6 player in the country overall. He's just an absolutely special player. I can't wait to see him because he's a dog. He's that Richard Sherman, just big. I could go up and get the ball, legitimately 6'3", all the ability that you want in a number one corner. So I think we knocked it out the park with that one. Shout out to OG Walt for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a kid that never wavered. On the offensive side of the ball, the guy, we might as well just call him Captain Buckeye. Tavian St. Clair, not only a special football player, but a special kid.
Yeah.
Read Berm's tweets from his signing ceremony last night. There was at like 7:00 at Bell Fountain High School. He had sent his letter in way earlier in the day, but they did a ceremony. And he stayed for 2 hours after the ceremony, signing autographs for essentially the entire town of Bell Fountain.
Yeah.
The other caveat to this is he sat there for 2 hours signing autographs for free.
Yep.
The day after he announces he had signed an NIL deal with one of the largest memorabilia companies in the country in Panini.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. And he comes from a community in Bell Fountain, being in school at Urbana for, those 6 years I was in Champaign County. Bell Fountain, it's right down the road. And so you
Yep.
get pretty comfortable and you get to know, a lot of people in that community. And it's a very proud community. And it's very similar to Marion, a lot of the same things they deal with that we deal with here. But it's a very proud community, and they support their football program. And this is a kid who had every opportunity to transfer high schools. There are other high schools in that area that he could have gone to and probably won some state championships at, but he decided to stay at home and to take care of business and really put Bell Fountain on the map. Bell Fountain had a ton of talent come through there in the last 3 or 4 years. He's got a little brother that's likely going to be the quarterback at Bell Fountain next year. That's also a stud. I think his name is Rain. How cool of a name is that?
So. Yeah.
I mean, this kid
young.
this kid is phenomenal. I had the opportunity to play them in the 7-on-7 championship at Ohio State last summer when I was the defensive coordinator at Findlay. And it was pretty cool, man. We got to play Olentangy, where I'm at now, Ethan Grunkemeyer, who's at Penn State. And then in the championship, it was Ryan Montgomery versus Tavian St. Clair. And everybody was like calling it the offer bowl, like who's going to get the offer out of this class? Well, Tavian ended up being the person that got that offer, but there was just something different about them, man. We ended up beating them, but this just swagger that Tavian had, you could just tell like him and Ryan were both just destined for some big things. And so I just love seeing that in person, the sportsmanship that he had, the love that him and Ryan had. They were both open to both being in this class for the Buckeyes. And so that just tells me a lot about them and a lot about the family. Their dad was over there talking to the Montgomery family. Like, they were so open to having 2 quarterbacks in this class. He just wanted to be a Buckeye, bottom line. And so, we always talk about getting guys in that want to be Buckeyes. Well, I think our 2 best players in this class, and Devin Sanchez and Tavian St. Clair, want to be Buckeyes and are going to be a driving force in the success of this program for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely. That was actually, he committed right around that time,
same
right?
day. It was that same day.
And so then obviously, the next guy to hit on is probably, I don't want to say the most surprising, but the recruitment that shows that James Laurinaitis is going to be really, really, really good at this. Actually, James Laurinaitis may have put together the best linebacker class in the country. Let's just throw that out there. And that's not scarlet and gray glasses. James Laurinaitis goes into Texas, pulls Riley Pettijohn out of McKinney, Texas, which is no, easy task. Texas and Texas A&M were both all over this kid. And this is another kid that didn't waver.
No. And Riley Pettijohn, we haven't talked about the safeties yet, but Riley Pettijohn and Fahim Delane, probably my 2 favorite players in this class. Riley is he has the potential to be in the starting rotation as a freshman. I mean, he's that good. You're talking about a kid who runs a 10-7 100. You're talking about a kid who could be an All-American running back if he wanted to. Like, he could play so many different spots. He can rush the passer. He can do so many different things. I think getting him was huge. Like you said, pulling him out of Texas, where he was probably getting offered an insane amount of money from A&M and from the Longhorns. It just goes to show that relationship that he built with James Laurinaitis was real. And I think James did a really good job of never wavering about Riley and Tarvos Alford or TJ Alford being their guys and Eli Lee being their guys. And so, Riley's going to be a special, special player for us. And that's a name that we're going to get really familiar with very soon in his career.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, Fahim Delane next, another, almost slept on because his recruitment was so quiet.
Yeah.
He just didn't waver.
Yeah.
Another one of those, just in this day and age, safeties with that incredible size, great athleticism, really good with the ball in his hands even.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
he may end up being a bigger, you know, football IQ wise and everything. It lines up to where he might be a bigger Caleb Downs, if we're being
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
So those guys right there are, so those four right there are all in the top 50.
Yeah.
Um, you know, then you hit into guys we talked about recently, so we won't really dive into Quincy Porter. But the Buckeyes saved off some late flip attempts there.
Yeah.
Carter Lowe, that's our first or second Ohio kid behind Tavian.
Yep.
True tackle. So we'll go ahead and we'll group this conversation together. Obviously, the glaring, I don't want to say weakness because I really like the class that we have, but given the numbers that you need, this class underachieves on the offensive line. Only brought in 3 guys so far. Now, let me preface this, and this is something we should have talked about beforehand, that there is a second signing period in February.
Yeah.
Which I don't believe that Phil Bowser signed with Marshall.
Yeah.
So keep that name tucked in the back of your hats.
Yeah. Yeah. And listen, I get it. You want to have, with this day and age, you want to be able to stockpile as many guys as you can in an offensive line room, right? You want to have 15 plus. So depth is never going to ever be an issue. I think Ohio State has done a solid job of developing. People can talk about our offensive line all they want. They were good this year. They had a couple bad games, but you talk about not having your top 2 guys and in 2 of those big games in Indiana and obviously the Michigan game when you're going up against 2 of the best D tackles in the country. I think our offensive line did a very admirable job this year. We still rushed for over 2,000 yards in the regular season. Like, there's some really good things that they did.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
you want to and you want to have more than 3 guys in your class. And I'm a natural optimist, and so I just look at the 3 guys that we got. And Carter Lowe, obviously, I had the opportunity to coach against Carter Lowe. He's a big dude, man. He's a big dude. He's nimble. He still has growing to do, I think. If you look at him, he's still got that little bit of a baby face, but I think, he's a player that is a natural tackle. I think he's got versatility where he could bump inside, but I think they're going to keep him as a tackle. I think he's a very good player. Obviously, he's a borderline 5-star, number 9 tackle in the country, number 60 player overall in the country. And then you bump to Jaden McFadden. McFadden, we may share it on our Facebook page, but there's a clip of him at a camp where he is just mauling people and telling them to their face about it. And the Buckeyes like him as a tackle. I think he's got versatility to be somebody that's inside, but athletically, if you watch his film, he is a freak. And so he's a kid that is fitting that mold of those athletic types, but he also is just a mauler. And I think Ohio State needs more guys that are like that. And then even with Jake Cook, Jake Cook, listen, this is a kid that you want to root for. Why? Because he went out and earned his Ohio State offer, right? He was told that how he performed at an Ohio State camp was going to determine whether he got an offer or not. This dude worked so hard that he made himself puke. Then he goes back out there after puking everywhere, and he continues to try and just do everything he can to get that offer. Like, you're talking about 3 dudes who want to be Buckeyes, who are going to scratch, claw, do whatever it takes, be in the foxhole with their teammates. And I know the numbers aren't what we want them to be. I know we want to at least have 5 in this class. But there's still opportunities to get 5, like you said, whether it's with the Bowser kid from Ursuline or some other kid who hasn't signed yet, and then obviously with the transfer portal. So I get it, frustrated that we didn't get the big numbers in this class, but the 3 guys we got are extreme quality, man, that are just the type of dudes that you want to have on your offensive line. And one of the things that we have always harped on about, what we want to see in our classes is more Ohio guys who understand. Well, we got 2 of them. that understand what this rivalry means with Michigan and what it means to be a Buckeye. And so I think, obviously the numbers weren't what we want, but the 3 guys that we got, very, very solid.
Yeah, and your analysis of McFadden is perfect. This was like a year ago. I had a friend of mine who's a Michigan fan told me, he goes, you know what your guys' problem is? He goes, on your offensive line, you don't have enough dude with arms, sleeves, and bad attitudes.
Yeah.
And McFadden's got I don't want to say he's got a bad attitude, but he will let you hear about it when he puts you down.
Absolutely.
So yeah, offensive line, and we'll address that obviously more because the portal is going to be huge on the offensive line. And if Ohio State strikes out in the portal on some of these guys, it's early in portal season, and there are already some serious potential dudes in the portal.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And we'll dive into the portal for a second here at the end, real quick. The other obvious position of concern going into this class was the defensive line, and the rumors of the demise of Larry Johnson have greatly been exaggerated. Again, held off very late charges from Auburn for Zion Grady, the number 5 edge. And then, held off a late push from Florida and Miami for a guy who might be my favorite commit on the defensive side of the ball in the class, and Jarquez Carter.
Yeah.
This guy, the more I watch him, is so underrated. He's a freaky athlete.
Yeah.
But at his conference today, he said, I wanted to jump out of the stands and fight the Michigan guys myself on Saturday. And then you get into Maxwell Roy, another inside guy, Trajan Odom. We've talked about him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Buckeyes benefit of a signing day flip. They go to St. John Bosco, a program they have sucked at getting guys out of.
Yeah.
I think that's where Wyatt Davis went, though.
Wyatt Davis and Court Williams.
Yeah. And they pull Epi Citinelli. Vastly, I thought he was ranked higher. I know he's like the number 9 player in California, but on the national scale, he didn't get a lot of love. But his spin move is better than anybody on the rosters right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's of Tongan descent. And so I think he tweeted that he was the first Tongan player that the Buckeyes have ever recruited and had on their team. So shout out to him if that's the case, man. That's awesome. But yeah, I love this defensive line class. You want to get those defensive tackles who have a chip on their shoulder, man.
Yes.
Like, let's be honest. That was Caden McDonald. Caden McDonald is going to be an all-conference player for us next year. I don't like to make many guarantees, but I can almost guarantee you that dude is going to be an absolute game wrecker for us next year. But with Trajan Odom, with Maxwell Roy, and with Jarquez Carter, you got 3 dudes who are extremely talented from 3 different areas. Maxwell Roy's from Pennsylvania. He went to St. Joe's Prep, where Kyle McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr. went. Trajan Odom, he's from North Carolina. And then you got Jarquez Carter, who's from Florida. So you're talking about going to get 3 different areas that you need to be able to recruit from. And so to get these guys, to secure these guys, all 3 of them are going to come in with a chip on their shoulder. It's a very underrated defensive tackle class that I think has tremendous potential, especially with the guy like Jarquez Carter, like you said. And then the defensive ends, like, listen, keeping Zion was a big deal. I think Zion is an absolute player, and I think he could be a guy that gets into the rotation early. And then Epi Citinelli, listen, that dude has a get off. And this is one thing I love about I root for these kids. He started 1 year in high school. Started 1 year. When you go to these big time programs, you may not play early. You may not play early because the talent at these schools is out of this world, right? And so he took advantage of the camp circuit in his senior season, and he got the most out of it. And I love these guys because he's got so much more football ahead of him. He's 6'5", 220 pounds, has the opportunity to be like a true jack for us, which we need in this class. And he's got just tremendous potential. And we know
Yeah.
how people of Polynesian descent, can really just blow up when they hit the weight room. And so, this is a kid that I think has so much potential. I was so pumped that we got him to flip because I hadn't really heard about him.
Yeah.
And then you sent me a text about him and I watched his film and I'm like, okay, this dude, he can ball.
Yeah, and anytime, we've talked about it when you get the guys from the Aquinas and the IMGs and Gorman, these big programs, you tend to get a lot of these guys who come in mentally ready.
Oh yeah.
And being of I know he's from Tonga, but anytime you can bring a Polynesian guy in, those dudes are built different.
They are, man.
We saw it with Tommy Togiai, just a freak.
Yeah.
Even Paleo Gayote, the
Yeah.
year he was here, showed what we thought he could be.
Yeah.
Haskell Garrett has
Mm-hmm.
Polynesian in him. It just, I have grown, and I think I hit on this on a prior episode, very, very fond of Hawaii high school football.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some games out there. Oh my. You want to watch some dudes, watch Punawahu, which is the most famous school out there. They go hard.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
the culture, man, and the family dynamic of that culture is something that I've always admired because it's like a warrior spirit and it's something that means more to them, and so they are truly playing for their family, they're playing for their brothers and sisters and things like that, and so it's just beautiful. It's beautiful to see, man. And so anytime you can get that culture and that type of mindset in the Woody, like you can't turn it away, man. I'm excited for Epi.
yeah. So Kahuku is the school in Hawaii who their whole routine is warrior based. And then you have St. Louis. That game right there is insane. Like St. Louis played modern day. Or no, I'm sorry, Kahuku played modern day. Like that's crazy to be like, yes, I want to play modern day. Um, so just something to throw out there, kind of on a tangent. Right outside the top 100 guys, that brings us to TJ Alford. Very, very late. Flip hold off there. And listening to him talk though, I don't think the kid ever thought about wavering. You heard a lot of smoke, but it sounds like it was more the people in his circle than him. Let's see. So then we get to the running backs. Again, we've talked about, Bo Jackson a lot. So we don't him, but then the Buckeyes, Anthony Turbo Rogers, we talked about him a lot. Number 9 running back in the country. So we brought 3 backs in, Bo Jackson, Anthony Rogers. And again, I hate to keep saying that these dudes are getting slept on, but watch Isaiah West's film and tell me about a guy getting slept on. 3 backs, 3 definitively different skill sets.
Yeah, man. This 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 backfield class is special. I think Turbo Rogers is an underrated kid. You watch his film, people are going to see that he's a smaller guy, but he's explosive, man. He's going to be that bowling ball. I don't want to compare him to J.K. Dobbins or anything like that, but I think he's got potential to have that type of build. Isaiah West is just a big bruiser. That's one of the God, I feel like we've missed that in that backfield.
Yes.
Somebody that it's going to just be able to fall forward and get you 3 every single time. Just an absolute stud, man. And he's a big dude, underrated, but again, coming in with the chip on his shoulder. And then Bo Jackson, if we can just keep him healthy, he's got all the tools to be like the next really good back to come out of Ohio State. And so Coach Locke really just knocked it out of the park with this class. And I think, I think Coach Dave even said it in his presser, the first year coaches on this staff with Coach Locke and Coach Laurinaitis and Coach G, they just did a great job of taking care of business in their position group.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of taking care of business, Keenan Bailey probably doesn't get a whole lot of love from especially people outside of the Ohio State circle. Nate Roberts was number 1 on his list. He made no bones about it. Number 9 tight end in the country. And then we also went and got Brody Lennon from Gates Mills. Again, 2 kind of different guys. Brody Lennon's more that blocker type, almost like a Bennett Christian who can catch the ball when he needs to, whereas Nate Roberts is your more athletic kind of split him out guy. Let's see. And then we get into wide receivers. Phillip Bell, again, phenomenal athlete. Mission Viejo, California. And then, we missed Desi. Oh, Desi Jones. There's Desi. Wayne, New Jersey. Can't miss Desi. He's going to be a mismatch in the slot.
Yes, he is.
And one thing that's crazy, when we talked about this kid when he got his offer, Bachman Miller is actually higher ranked than Desi Jones nationally now.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Bogpen is 292 nationally. So that puts him in front of Brody Lennon, Desi Jones, Maxwell Roy, Epi, Trajan Oden, Deshaun Stewart, Javen McFadden, Jake Cook, Cody Haddad, Eli Lee, Isaiah West, and Jordan Woods.
Wow.
And the kid's never played the position we recruited him at.
No.
And they've got him listed as the number 11 athlete in the country. So that tells you all you need to know there.
That's awesome.
And then Deshaun Stewart, safety, Cody Haddad, when he's healthy, his special, rating would be so much higher.
Yeah.
I know you've seen a lot of him.
Cody Haddad is he's an all-around safety. He's got range. He's a ball hawk. He's got great ball skills, can come down hill and make good tackles. I think he's got potential to be a Lathan Ransom type. He's a very fluid athlete, the type of kid you want in your secondary. He has just not been able to stay healthy, like you said. I think it was 2 years in a row of hand injuries. So not anything major, but enough to really deter, the success that he could have on the field. And it definitely affected his ranking. So I think Cody Haddad is really good. The kids that we got from New Jersey, Deshaun Stewart is a player. I think he'll be a type of guy that could be in the slot quite a bit. He's a dog too, and he'll tell you about it. It's one of the things I love about his film. And then, when you talk about some of the other guys that you mentioned, especially with the tight ends, Brody Lennon is a kid that I think has, he's just underrated, but he's got all the tools as far as catching the ball, right? I think he did everything for the school that he played at in Ohio, whether it's playing defensive line, playing in the slot, playing on the outside. And so it's another kid who went out and earned the offer. And then Nate Roberts, like you said, Keenan Bailey went out and got his guy. This was his number 1 target, and we got him. So I think you're going to see the tight end room really start to evolve. Now we're going to be, leaning more on the Jelani Thurmans next year and things like that. And so that's one room I'm excited about. But, again, with the running backs, with the receivers, like this is just a really good class. And I don't want, Buckeye Nation to look over that, man, because it's a very talented class. And, shout out to BP Miller too, man. Like, how could you not root for that kid? Yes. Small school Ontario, never played receiver before. And he's, like you said, the number 11 athlete in the country. Like, it's just unreal.
Yeah, I mean, raw. He's raw. And then a couple other guys to just tie this class up. Eli Lee from Hoban. He's kind of your thumper linebacker. That true just hits you in the mouth. Alford is your almost like Arvell Reese mold. To compare him to somebody on the roster now. And then Riley Pettijohn is your do-it-all guy. Can play any of the 3 spots. Where, Eli Lee is more that true middle linebacker. if this were 10 years ago, he'd be like your neck roll wearing, just thump you.
Yeah.
And then Jordan Woods, who we flipped from Cincinnati, 6'3", 6'4", depending on where you look at. They call him the pterodactyl. What does a corner? So that's two corners pushing 6'3".
Yeah.
Corners used to be 5'10" because they couldn't play
Yeah.
receiver.
Yeah.
What does having corners with that size bring to a defense?
Man, it just does so much, especially when you are trying to be multiple in coverage like we are. First off, they're going to have a ton of range. They're going to have just because of their length on deep balls and things like that, it's going to force a quarterback to have to throw the ball in spots that have to be perfect because they're such long and rangy guys. So, on those deep balls that we saw, maybe Denzel Burke getting beat on this year or IGB, even though IGB is a pretty taller guy. But when you have guys that are pushing 6'3", 6'4", just that range, the arm length is really going to cause a lot of issues. The other thing it does too, especially in a coverage like cover two, where you've got guys that are playing in the flats and you want them to be physical with the number one receivers, their length is just going to stop any outside vertical release, and it's going to do a great job of funneling people in. And then when they try to throw those Honeywell shots into the corner, it's so hard to do if you have disciplined, lengthy corners. And so these guys just provide so much versatility. You think back to like Richard Sherman when he was with the Legion of Boom and in Seattle. They were really exclusively a cover three team, and it was just because Richard Sherman and the other corner that they had could just cover so much ground. I mean, they could just cover so much ground, which made them, they could be more simple when you have guys who are extremely long and rangy. And so you just have the ability to do so much with them, and their length just causes problems for so many people.
Yeah. And then, you had Cam Chancellor back there who was like 7 foot tall and 250 pounds and just dude should have been playing linebacker. You would have thought, but they were the first guy, to bring that big, muscled up safety. So yeah, as of right now, the Buckeyes sit, I believe, the number 6 class, in 247, depending on where you look. And one of the things, we talked about the offensive linemen, and so I went through and started looking at the top couple classes, and the top couple classes, Texas has 4, Bama has 5. The numbers are such a big deal, I feel like, because everybody knows that room has not hit the goal number in each of the last couple classes.
Yeah.
Obviously, the big fish would have been Mr. Sanders, which the Buckeyes did not get. But it's okay. I mean,
yeah, it's okay.
And that is what it is. Sanders did officially sign with Kentucky. Josh Petty did officially sign with Georgia Tech. So some of the names that you've heard are kind of off the board. But that brings us to the second cycle, I guess you would call it, the portal.
Yeah.
Obviously, 2 years ago, Jimmy Simmons. Last year, Seth McLaughlin. On the offensive line. And there have been some guys, and we'll dive into who portal targets are more so probably after this weekend, because that's when the portal floodgates are going to open.
Yeah, absolutely.
They already are. You're seeing a lot of guys out there. Some at positions of need, some have not. Yes, there's a kicker that I believe Ohio State is going to go after hard.
Yeah.
I can't even think of his last name. I think he's from Eastern Michigan.
Yeah, I saw that.
Hey, Jesus. Dude is good. And he's a lefty, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll dive more into that. As far as the Buckeyes and who we're losing in the portal, we've had 3 guys announced. The first one was sad. Gabe Powers announced he's going to go into the portal. Wish I could say I was surprised, but I think there's a silver lining to this. I think that means Sonny Styles is coming back.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Losing Gabe Powers sucks, man, because this is a kid who, whenever he was in, he was always making plays. And the other thing is too, like he was from right down the road in Marysville.
Yeah.
So it's a guy that you just rooted for. You wanted to see him find success. Unfortunately for him, he was just behind some veteran guys. Now, do I think if he had Coach Laurinaitis earlier in his career, I think you would have seen him in the rotation a lot sooner than he was. I mean, he obviously wasn't really in it, but he also wasn't naive. He saw the writing on the wall with Arvell Reese kind of jumping him a little bit. Like, okay, like I understand. Like, I don't really want to wait around and take that chance of possibly not being the guy. So I'm going to go play somewhere where I can go be the guy, get 2 years of good film, and put myself in the best position to make it to the NFL. And so I'm going to root for him no matter where he's at. I think he's a special player. Obviously, I still wish he was here, but with 2 years left, he'll go land somewhere like a Wisconsin or
Or a Notre
a,
Dame.
a Notre Dame, right? And he'll be a dude. Like he will be a player for them, and we're going to be like, man, I wish we still had him. But rooting for him anyway, man. You got to do what you feel is best for you. And he was a good Buckeye while he was here. Did everything that he was asked to do. And so shout out to Gabe, man. Good luck to you.
Yeah, and the other side to that is two things. If we are continue to inching closer to a Jim Knowles defense, which we think we are, a true Knowles defense, you only play two true backers.
Yeah.
So Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, the staff is growing to love Peyton Pierce. You're gonna have Riley Pettijohn. I get it, So go be great, Gabe. And the other side to it is I still think Ohio State failed Gabe because I think Gabe Powers is too big to be a linebacker.
Yeah.
I have stood beside the kid. I think I fully envision him moving to a defensive end when I met him.
Yeah.
So, I look at it that way. The other two guys both come out of Zone 6. Jaden Ballard will have 1 year left. And again, a writing on the wall situation, kind of didn't really have a choice, if he wants to get film to potentially play at the next level.
Yeah.
Because there's just not a lot there. Again, this kid's going to go somewhere and he's going to make somebody very happy.
Yeah. No, I think so, man. Listen, I always thought Jaden Ballard could have been used in some form or fashion, whether it was just running deep post, whatever it was. I felt like he could have had a role, but for whatever reason, he just never was able to take that next step. And with 1 year left, he's the type of kid that could go to a Toledo and then be an absolute player for a year and give himself a chance to go play at the next level or a Cincinnati or something like that. And so listen, I'm rooting for him too. I think he's got all the potential. I think in the NFL, he has potential to be a phenomenal special teams player. And so, go get your film up, go get your opportunities and go take a shot, at the next level. So sucks to lose him, but he was here for 4 years, man. He gave us, 4 years of being a Buckeye, stayed loyal, even though he was probably told not to. And so go somewhere and be great, man. But yeah, definitely somebody that I wish, would have had a few more opportunities.
Yeah. And then Kojo Antwi, again, just struggling to find the field. And that position group is so deep. You guys have heard me say it multiple times that Brian Hartline doesn't go after transfers. He might not have a choice just to get a couple of bodies in that room. And there's one very, 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 very big fish out there in the transfer portal that I think if Hartline wants to pursue a transfer wide receiver, Micah Hudson, Brian Hartline's on line one. So we'll see. So that's kind of where we're at with the portal right now. Like we said, as the portal opens next week, that'll give us a chance to really do some deep dives because we're going to have a couple of weeks of know before the battles because we're not going to play until the 20th or 21st. So with that, to kind of tie up the recruiting stuff, because if we can get to it, Coach Slate's wants to talk about Ryan Day's presser the other day real quick, but we did get a few questions.
Yeah.
What do we do about the O-line? Doesn't seem like we recruited well, and I've seen several players into the portal. Who do we pursue and why? We'll dive deeper into that. But yes, O-line recruiting, I don't want to say we haven't done well because I think Ian Moore will be a starter somewhere on the line next year.
Yeah.
I think, fingers crossed that he stays. And honestly, I think this kind of ties to Ryan Day press conference. I don't think Tegra Shabola will be starting in the playoff.
Yeah.
So I would assume that your boy is going to get the call. So
we'll see, man.
We'll see. We will dive deeper into that as we know more.
Yeah, and I will say, with the offensive line, like I watched a little bit of the film. Was tough to watch. I will just say that from the offensive line perspective. Not that, I thought our offensive line did some really good things. I think our running backs missed some holes.
Yes.
Zach Smith kind of highlighted that on one of his things as well. But I will say, and this is not a knock on the kid, man. I will not bash our players. These are kids, these are young men who are just trying to figure things out. But it was not Tegra's best game.
No.
He didn't look athletic. He looked slow off the ball. And that was something that, I think we have seen over the last couple weeks. And so I think Coach Day has recognized that. And I think there will be some shuffling. And that shuffling could be moving Carson back to guard and Josh Padilla playing center. It could be, keeping Carson at center, Austin at left guard and putting Luke at right guard or vice versa. And so I do think you're going to see some of that shuffling for the playoff. But, I think it's definitely something that's got to be addressed. The Buckeyes will definitely be active in the portal when it comes to offensive tackle. I think there are a few people out in the portal that are out there right now that could help us. But we have to understand one thing, man. Like a lot of these kids who are transferring and using their extra year of eligibility, it's going to be about money. And that's just the honest truth. And so Ohio State could do a great job recruiting a guy, building a relationship. But if somebody comes in and says, hey, Ohio State's paying you, $500,000 or $1 million, hey, we'll pay you $2 million. Well, that's where I'm going to go, especially if it's my last year. And so if we get outbid for players, it's not saying, hey, well, Justin Fry needs to be fired, right? You can't stop somebody from being outbid. Like it's just not going to happen. But if we had the opportunity to have $10 million to drop on these guys on the offensive line, you better believe they would do it. And so I just, with the offensive line recruiting, it's such a antiquated type, deal. We just got to make sure we understand who we're going after. We have to identify them very early. We can't get on these guys late. We got to get them on campus. And I could see us definitely signing 2 tackles out of the portal. Who they are, I don't know. But I think you're going to see us go after tackles that are big. I don't see us going after, the 6'4", 6'5" guys.
Like 6'8".
I mean, I think you're going to see us go after some bigger guys.
That's one of them. May or may not have Ohio ties too. But again, we'll dive deeper into that. Especially as we get some more names out there. Depending on what goes on with the quarterback room, just throwing this out there because I think there's going to be some attrition there finally. Man, if you could find a way, which you're not going to because he's going to want to go start somewhere, but if you could find a way to get Caden Salter, wow. But I think pretty good. I think our friends in Bloomington might be staking claim to him. Which will be scary. Caden Salter in that offense.
Pretty good.
What will the Buckeye transfer portal look like for players leaving and transferring in based on conference championship week and depending on the playoffs? It really sucks that these guys have to declare so quickly.
Worst timing ever.
Because now you're messing with depth, you're messing with everything. Now the school can let the kids continue to play if that's the agreement they have. You saw that with Taraja Mitchell 2 years ago. which that kid is still a Buckeye, man. Like, he loves his Gators where he went, but he is still a Buckeye.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think you might see a few more, before the playoff from the Buckeyes.
Yeah.
We saw, I think it was a corner from Georgia already announced, like a starter, that
Yeah.
he's going. Bama's, it's weird. It's a very weird time. Oregon, a tackle from Oregon has
Yeah.
announced. If Ohio State does play Tennessee, do we think that David Sanders will sign with Winter? No, he's the ball.
Yeah.
And then a general question about commitments and the new portal. Do players not feel as tied to their commitments knowing they can swap teams with no sitting period? Does that affect how much of a bag you throw up front? So the person, Tyler asked this question, and Tyler will be the first one to tell you he's not followed recruiting very long since he started listening to us. There's always been flips.
Always.
Now, I don't think the past holds a candle to what we saw this year.
No.
I mean, flip graphics were a thing. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, and even today, or yesterday during signing day, you saw a kid who committed to LSU, signed with LSU, but said he wanted to go to Florida State, but pretty much LSU paid him more money. And so, like, this is the one thing that it's hard. People say, like, oh, there need to be guardrails, and I agree with that. But the motivation for some of these kids is just different. They're not thinking about just themselves now. They're thinking about their family and how this newfound wealth could change a lot of things in their family. And so I can't fault a kid who he may have grown up a Buckeye fan, and the Buckeyes are like, hey, we're going to give you $500,000 to come here, $125,000 each year. Like, this is yours, plus NIL deals. We're going to set you up for your career after you NFL and all this stuff. But if the Miami Hurricanes come in and say, F that, we're going to give you $2 million and you're going to get to play at the U in Miami, Florida, and the kid decides to choose that, like, more power to you, man. Like, the motivation for the kids is just different. And so to answer his question, like, is if you're tied to that school or tied to the commitment, I do think a commitment is just something that it sounds good at the time, right? But when it's time to sign the dotted line, you're going to have to really look at all the options and what's important to you. And so I definitely think the players don't feel as tied to their commitment as they may have in years past, but their motivations are different. And so it's hard to ever fault a kid for wanting to do something that's going to change, the trajectory of their family potentially. So, it's just like you said, it's tough times. And until the NCAA or whatever governing body puts guardrails on this thing, this is what we're going to get.
Yeah, and you've actually already seen some of that with, the Bryce Underwood numbers. It sounds like, we've always knew the numbers were inflated. It sounds like his is actually more along the lines. I want to say I read like $1.5 million a year with potential to do more. I get it. Here's the thing. Before NIL was NIL, there were bags being handed out. Let's be honest.
Yep.
And it mattered. Old T-Town tuxedos or whatever it was in Tuscaloosa, T-Town menswear.
Yeah.
It's happened in Columbus. It's happened in Ann Arbor. I mean, it is what it is. As far as the no sitting out thing, I think, I don't love that you get unlimited transfers right now. I always thought you should be allowed one.
Mm-hmm.
Because for sometimes it just doesn't work. There's a kid on Ohio State's roster, extremely talented, but the rumors are out there that he's been homesick.
Yeah.
That kid should not be punished because he wants to go play football somewhere closer to home.
Nope.
Your coach leaves. That's the one that always got me is if your coach leaves and now that is, even if they cap transfers again, I think they're going to leave it that if your coach or position coach leaves, you'll be allowed to move.
Absolutely. As they should, because coaches can come and go as they please.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, you could sign a contract extension and then the next day you get an offer from a school that you've always wanted to coach at, and the
Yep.
next thing you know, you're gone, right? And there's no repercussions for that. And so I'm a my dad might get mad at me for saying this, but I'm a fan of not, if the kids want to transfer, let them transfer. I mean, what is the NCAA for? What are we doing this for? Are we doing it for the fans, or are we doing it for the kids?
Yep.
And so if a kid feels like another place is a better opportunity for them, then let them go play. Let them go where they feel they're needed, and let them go play. Like I never liked the sitting out thing. Like I just always felt like that
Yeah.
punished them. And like that's the one thing where I think I'm pretty liberal on. Like if you want to transfer, man. Like it may not work out for you. You're setting yourself behind because you're always starting over. But if you think you got a better opportunity to go play somewhere, then hey, go do what you got to do, man. But you know, it's just a different time. It's just crazy that we were even talking about, $1.5 million and
Yeah.
all these different things, man. It's just nuts.
I mean, Underwood was introduced, and they like threw a highlight video up at the Pistons game the other night. Like,
Yeah.
and like you heard, Naeem Offred say that Phil Knight is basically the reason he's going to Oregon.
Yeah.
Which that still, to my knowledge, would be a booster
Yeah.
working with a player.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I'm sure there's an umbrella because of the Nike tie, but I will be real interested to see when Phil Knight is no longer in charge of Nike. Does Nike continue to foot those bills? Obviously Phil Knight's going to leave the Oregon football program money.
A
Let's be
lot of
honest.
money.
But if you saw anybody that saw my tweet today that listens to this, at what point, do the other Nike schools consider that kind of an FU to them? That
Yeah.
Nike is involving themselves with Oregon. If I'm Adidas or Under Armour, I start stepping my game up and I start trying to poach smaller schools. Be it a Purdue or start somewhere, prove you can do it, and then shoot your shot. Because as soon as you land a big fish and you can, compete, you're never going to compete with Nike. Let's be real there. The closest thing Under Armour's got Notre Dame and Maryland, and they do a great job with Notre Dame. They kept them the same. Maryland is kind of their Oregon. They do some crazy stuff, but not to the levels that Nike does, with
Yeah.
Oregon.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess we can start offering guys, their own scent of Bath and Body Works lotion. New windshields, Safe Light. I don't know. Michigan's got, I can't Ellison or whatever his name is, that he's like the second wealthiest guy in the world
Yeah. He's
or in the
married
state.
to somebody who
Yeah.
went to
So
Michigan.
can Bezos marry a Michigan or an Ohio State fan? I mean,
Yeah.
or Elon. I mean, the vice president's an Ohio State alum. And the first bill that we get, under the new regime, can we get some money allotted to Ohio State NIL in there?
Yeah. There we go.
I don't know. I still think that once he's done playing, I think you will see LeBron James get more involved. I think that's coming. Bryce Harper's a massive Buckeye fan, but those guys can't compare to what
No.
What is funding Michigan and Oregon right now.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't compare to it.
So yeah, I know you had wanted to kind of dive into today's press conference, but I say let's save that for Sunday.
Yeah, we could do that.
Because we'll have the playoff, and then we can dive into that a little bit, and then we'll reassess and go from there.
Yep.
How we want to do it for these next couple of weeks. But I would assume we're gonna have a before the battle. Let's see. I don't know. I can't think of anything clever for the Volunteers yet, but
Yeah, I don't know.
now there's a chance it may not be them, depending on what happens. I'm cheering for chaos though. I want Clemson to win. I want UNLV to win. I want Georgia to win. I mean, I want Penn State to win.
Yeah, man. That's what makes college football great, is that this is as frustrating as this year has been, the amount of parity that we've had amongst all college teams. There's no dominant
Yes.
college team.
Yes.
You can go out and you can lose to a 6-6 Arkansas. You could lose to a 7-5 Michigan. You could be in a very close game with Wyoming or
Yeah.
Idaho,
Or
like
Boise
Oregon was,
State.
or Boise State. Like this is what I think college football is about. And it's making the life of the committee extremely difficult. And that's what I want.
Yes.
There was somebody on CBS that was talking about this is just about brands, brands, brands. And yes, the Ohio State brand, the Alabama brand, the Texas brand, all those, yes, absolutely. Those brands are always going to get a little bit of favor because of the money that they can bring in. But I love the fact that the committee is really having to think things through with a team like Alabama and SMU, right? I love that. That is what the playoff is about. And
Yes.
so, like you said, as much chaos as possible. And if the Buckeyes have to go south and play in a dome or a nice warm weather, then so be it. I think it might be better for us anyway.
I'm telling you, I want a blizzard the weekend of the playoffs because you're gonna have games in Happy Valley, Columbus, South Bend. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the whole idea of that home game.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll see. But I'm with you. The Buckeyes almost want better weather. But yeah, we will visit the playoff on Sunday because with the Browns at 1, we won't record till after that at least. And the rankings will be out by then. The bracket will be out. So we'll kind of assess that. We'll talk about Ryan Day's presser from signing day. He had some things out there. Talk about the elephant that was in the room for about 24 hours at the misconstruing of some words from Jay Crawford.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there. But I think that's all I've got for tonight.
Sounds good, man.
All right. We will see you guys then.